All right, we're live. My name is Jamie J. I'm the CEO and founder of Bottleneck Distant Assistance, and I'm talking. This is going to be incredibly fun today. I'm going to be talking with Vinnie Fisher, the CEO of Fully Accountable, and we're going to be talking about remote work, hybrid work models, things like that. It should be pretty interesting. So stay tuned. We'll be with you in 38 seconds. Well, hello there. My name is Jamie J. I'm the CEO and founder of Bottleneck Distant Assistance, but we're not talking about that today. We're going to be talking to Vinnie Fisher, and we're going to be talking about working from home, remote and hybrid. Vinnie is the CEO of Fully Accountable, and I am super excited to share his thoughts about how you can stop the bottleneck in your business. And why, oh, why is Vinnie someone that can help you stop the bottleneck in your business? Well, let me tell you, Vinnie is an entrepreneur and best-selling author who has served over 20 years of experience growing, scaling multiple 8-figure companies. Amazing. His most recent mission is to help e-commerce, tech, and digital business owners improve their financial fluency and operate their accounting back office as a profit center. After growing 3 to 8-figure businesses with fast growth, many customers, and low margin, Vinnie discovered the issue was that he lacked financial fluency and gave back much of his hard-earned money in cash waste and no margin. With no good solutions in the marketplace, Vinnie founded Fully Accountable, an outsourced full-service cutting-edge accounting firm that helps e-commerce and digital business owners through fractional CFO and accounting services. This is amazing. Vinnie has been awarded Digital Marketer of the Year multiple times, has been featured on many top-rated national podcasts and other media outlets such as Business Insider. He has also authored 3 best-selling books and has guided Fully Accountable to the Inc. 5000 as one of the fastest-growing companies in America twice, and ranked as one of the top 5 outsourced accounting firms by CFO Tech Outlook. So without any further ado, please allow me to introduce you to Mr. Vinnie Fisher. How are you, sir?
Hey, Jamie, I'm doing great. Gosh, I should get you to help my wife with good introductions for me. That was really great. So thank you for that.
That would probably be a very scary place for me to step into, just letting you know. This is fantastic, Vinnie. It sounds like you and I are kind of parallel running there. What I really like about this is a lot of people don't understand the power of hiring remotely. And with the advent of this experience of COVID that we found ourselves in over this past year, people have really had to figure out their work from home policies and how they can still be effective and still perform work even though they're working remotely. And I think that's been a big challenge for us to convey. But because of this, it's kind of happened. I'm wondering, I want to step into that, but could you tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do? And then we can dive into this remote and hybrid work model that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I want to say this for everybody because I love this subject, and I'm just getting the shadow out of my face for your benefit because you want to stare at someone pretty, right? But hey, so I want to say this for everybody. The world's response to this pandemic has been a shutdown. If you and I were sitting around back in December of 19 and like, where were we going to put some of our money? Most everyone would have said you and I doing remote and digital would have been riskier by an event of shut down the world by something digital or shut down, and it would have been safer to be local. Anyone who's really hedged with local, you haven't done anything wrong. You're just on the wrong side of the line. And the world has accelerated the way it's doing business. And, back 5+ years ago now, when I started a hybrid model and doubled down on digital, everyone thought I was nuts. They thought, man, I don't know if that's going to work. Vin, you're like a product and digital guy. Maybe you should go back to that. Are you really sure that this whole double down on digital is going to be the way things are going to go? are you sure you're right that like this outsourced model and fractionalization, like maybe that's not going to work? And quite honestly, 5-6 years ago, the technology as it relates to what we do as a business was a little behind. And some of that criticism wasn't far off. Well, here we are. I'm 5 years later as a CEO with over 100 people on our team and lots of clients and things. I am a leader every day. I have a bunch of people I lead. I'm married over 25 years with 4 kids. Lead. Part of my job is to be looking forward and always be innovating. Well, here we are in the middle of it. The world accelerated and caught up to what's coming next. What you and I do, Jamie, is on the forefront now. And it's right now mainstream forefront, which is usually 2 words you don't stick together.
Yeah, I had someone once, I sourced my first remote assistant in 2006 and built a company around that. And so it's been 15 years for me. And one of my friends said, Jamie, you've been social distancing before social distancing was a thing.
Doing all this, my neighbor says to me out in the yard, holy cow, I think I'm going to use a virtual assistant. He says this to me back like in April. And I'm like, oh, really? He goes like, yeah, it's like this new thing. I'm like, oh, really? It's a new thing, huh? Like, I'm just trying to love him through explaining, like, good for you. I'm glad you're doing that. But I think the mainstream business marketplace is being introduced to stuff that seems very second nature in the way we run our businesses.
I couldn't agree with you more. And as a matter of fact, I'm working with a university out of Canada right now. We're doing a white paper on the future workplace, the new hybrid model. And I've learned a lot of that. And one of the studies was a gentleman that I talked to has a company that launched some AI technology. And it was really interesting because they did a study from April 1st to 10th of this year with a company that had about 200 employees. And it was a software development company. And what they found is over that 10-day span, the lines of code is how they measured their productivity. And so everybody got sent home. Their productivity increased 67%. Yeah. Insane. But they had a problem. They were releasing lower amounts of new versions of the software. And they were like, how is that possible? What they found out was the collaborative element of being in the office together, working together was missing. So those developers were spending so much time debugging, the coding that wasn't working together. And so they figured out a way of making this new hybrid model, the certain amount of people that needed to come into the office. And what was really key, especially like for something you and I do, who of that team can stay remote? Because according to Gartner research, 44% of the people that have been working remotely want to stay working remotely. So how do you bring that all together? And I was wondering if maybe you might be able to kind of chime in on that from your own experience.
I mean, we live that. We run a hybrid model. So, of all of our team, we have a corporate office in the building and the things we do here. And we have key people in our organization that come to an office. And even during all this time and the essential elements of what we do, there's a whole chunk of us that do that. But the vast majority of our company works hybrid, meaning they work outside of our building. We call them something a little different than distant. We call them homies. And so it's just a term we use here. It's a cultural term. One of our homies named themselves and it's stuck. But what's interesting about it is I will tell you, there are elements of our team that are here around us, the kind of the nucleus where it works. In our building, there's creative, there's pieces of our operations as it relates to sales where we communicate. But a lot of our production people work from another place. They'd log into our systems. And so a little bit of both can go a long way. Now, in fairness, this has been happening for a long time. You look at some companies that have been pulling off remote and hybrid well, there's some more mainstream traditional companies. It's now being introduced into everyone's situation because it was forced on us. And for the companies that are going to be doing it now, I believe that a hybrid, not an all or nothing, is going to ultimately look to be probably the more efficient model because you need a little of each.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, that having that in-person collaborative element that was proven through the study that they had is extremely important. Our new director of business development worked in corporate America for a company that rhymes with Smoffice Meepo. And she said she'd been working remotely for 20 years, right? Going around. So it's been around.
Yeah.
And what this has done, Jeffrey A. Green, he's an author that wrote this book called Crossing the Chasm, I thought was fairly interesting because 2.5% of us are the innovators. That's you, Vinnie, the leader, right? 2.5% have the guts to start something new. We introduce it to our local sphere of influence, which makes up about 13.5% of the population. And that's where you kind of get your trial out there. You're putting your service out there to kind of see if it has legs. But then there's a chasm, a gap, going from your sphere to early adopter mainstream. That's a little bit different when you're trying to present to people that you have never dealt with before. And I think what COVID did in this environment is it kind of forced people to cross that chasm and explore work from home policies and procedures and how to best move forward. I wonder if you have seen anything like that, or what this last year has been for you.
So the number one objection from the beginning of time of our company. So, right, we run a fractional CFO and fractional controller model. We run a managed service where we actually run your full back office or significant chunks of the parts you don't have the expertise to do. And so always our objection from the beginning of starting has been from people, great leaders of their companies who've said, oh, I love what you do. I'd love to have that in our building. It was always our objection. Introduce the reaction to this world's shutdown. Well, that objection is completely gone, as you can imagine. That we no longer are facing, oh, I'd like to have that in our building. So you're laying out idea of like somehow the commerce of market changes a little bit. We're a direct result of that. People are now wanting to hire us as a component. They're no longer struggling with, do I need that in my building? We are a direct result of, we've been doing that. And now it's record months in every category for us because we are in that phase of the chasm where, I like to say you do it long enough, it looks like normal or boring. We're in that phase where like what used to be extreme and crazy, now people are like, oh my gosh, you guys came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
5.5 years ago.
It's crazy, right? It really is crazy. This has opened up people's mind to that new hybrid. I call it the future workplace. I really, in my heart of hearts, believe this is the future of work. And like you said, all these mainstream companies are doing stuff like this.
I'll tell you one thing, Jamie, that's interesting as we survey our people. People need a little bit of both. And people are like, yeah, you say that, Vinnie, but why? Because we survey our people. And a couple things that our millennial group, which by the way, everyone's majority worker is the millennial group. I'm not someone special on that, but we survey our people. And one of the things, two things stuck out to us in the survey. One was they want a separation between work and home. A little bit, not all the time, but at least a little bit. And then they also want to be able to go somewhere and network and collaborate with people that they don't otherwise get through distant activity. And so even our homies, we have to create, a retreat for them or do certain things. So there's a reason why people want the hybrid. It's not just because we have a habit of working in an office. People want networking, and the younger people find that as a way to relationship. Harvard and Burns and all these Stearns and did some great studies. A big one was commissioned. Do you know one of the top 3 reasons people find satisfaction in their job is they have a friend? And so sometimes in distant learning, you're going to have a hard time in distant activity pulling off friend. And so that's why we're going to see these models of hybrid being the things that flourish into the future. And I think completely virtual can work as long as you fill in these categories other ways. And I don't think we're going back to full corporate in the office. I think we're going to have pockets of people who do completely virtual. And I think the mainstream is going to be some version of both.
Right. I tend to agree with that because I think that whole collaborative element, there's power in that. Yeah. And having that immediate reciprocity and, talking back and forth conversation, that's where a lot of ideas are born. in just conversation, brainstorming, brain dumping, right? And having that environment. And while, yes, you can do that on, fortunately, we have technology like Zoom. In 2006, we didn't have near the technology that we have now. You know what I'm saying? But we were
You can
still
go
remote.
back to 2013, 2014. We didn't have some of this stuff like Zoom and the things you're using here, and the stuff didn't really work. It was clunky. I remember versions 1 of Skype and how we would use those things. Like we're positioned well now to fill in this gap, but there's still a gap of relationship. You watch when conferences start to turn back on, people will still want to be with each other. I don't know if business travel will kick back in the way it did, but I think conference travel will expose how people want relationship.
Yep, exactly. And people are missing that. I was just talking with someone, a friend the other day, and she was actually going to do a first live speaking since this whole COVID hit, because that's what she did. She traveled around and spoke places.
Yep.
She was actually getting her first one, and she was so excited about going and being able to speak, because there's something about being on a Zoom room like this and speaking in front of 100 people. Yeah, that's fine. That's dandy. Being in front of 100 people and live in person is a totally different experience. So I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's exactly the way that we're going to be going. And it's going to be interesting to see how all of this kind of works itself out.
I will tell you this, there are a few things that are important. Like I've been doing this for a while, so there's things I've learned. There are a few things that are hitting leaders in the face right now that I would encourage, whether you're second, third in command, you're on the worker team, your management team needs to redo things. Here's what I'd say from my position. Your people at home will feel lost if you don't, as a leader, work harder at removing some of that gap, that chasm you spoke of. So we have stand-up meetings company-wide every Monday at 4:00 Eastern. And I don't lead every one of them, but I'm on every one of them if I can be. And our COO will always lead most of them. But 1 out of every 4, once a month, we dust off the old boy and he's speaking about things, stuff like culture and things that we consider very important to us. But I also really understand how that person at home needs to connect. I need to draw closer to her or him. I shouldn't expect her to draw closer to me. So that's item number 1. Item 2 is I have to really use my words and guard them, because in those situations, words matter. Because you ever write an email or a text and someone completely misunderstands you?
They take it out of context.
Well, because we have to have a virtual part of our relationship in our business, that happens even over digital video, because we're not in the same room. Someone might not draft off the tone of my voice or the passion, or maybe the way I'm looking or standing. You move, because we get flat and we're not 3D, you miss some of that. And so I would say, as a leader, I would really encourage you to really amplify more as it looks to keep people on mission, be regularly improving strategy and vision, and you got to reach out to them more. Now, I know that sounds like more work, but that's one of the benefits or burdens of running this kind of model.
Okay, yes. So you said a couple different things there. I'd like to unpack a little bit. You said burden, running. It could be a burden. It could be more work for the leader. But isn't that what we're in business for? If we're not uncomfortable and continue moving forward based on the tools and the environment that we find ourselves in that are out of our control, why are we leading? Right? I that's just me. That's a question I would pose to me, and well, frankly, to others as well, because I think you have to kind of make up for that. As business changes, you need to be able to change with it in order to be ahead of it or to be in the forefront of it. The other thing that I really appreciated what you said is you can't really tell. You're kind of flat. So what happens a lot of times too is we don't require people to have their video on all the time. So sometimes they have their video off. Well, are they frustrated? Are they bored? Like, you don't see that. Whereas you would always see that in the office, right?
I'll tell you a good tip for us is for our stand-up, our company-wide one, because we have a daily stand-up by department and what you do, and I'm not allowed to go to those apparently. So that's probably a good idea, because the old boy talks too much. But I encourage in every scenario I can the video to be on. And if there's not a video on, I want there to be a good reason. I'm not doing it to be parochial or to like lord over our people, but I do know that if I don't fight for that, who will? And if I don't fight for that, I know that it's actually one of the reasons among many that we win cultural awards for a good place to work, because I'm trying to keep us in relationship. And so, if you misread it, you might think I'm just being a booger and making you do that so you pay attention. The reality is, if you're paying attention, you're probably more on mission.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You nailed it. And so there was a thing going around for a while, and I'll say this very loosely because this was my perception of this thing going around, that you cannot build a good company culture remotely. And I adamantly disagree with that. I'm a huge culture freak too. I love the late, great Peter Drucker, Culture Eats Strategy for breakfast. As a matter of fact, I used to have a podcast called Culture Eats Strategy. I love it so much. I absolutely love culture, and I love figuring out ways to empower others. Everybody on our team, they write their own roles and responsibilities. Everybody, when we meet every Wednesday morning, a different person on our team leads that meeting every morning. During our meetings, each person talks about their wins, but what's more important is their missteps. They talk about, hey, I really dropped the ball here. I wish I could have got on this. And what you find is it empowers the rest of the team to kind of raise them up. And hey, how can I support you? If maybe they're working too hard or there are too many distractions, what can I do to support you? That's what comes out of it. And then each person that leads that meeting at the end, they do a 5-minute training on whatever it is in their role that they do. And it's been kind of fun. So we've had kind of like, not a competition, but one of our designers, he showed us how he went into Illustrator and created this little cartoon character, and made a little Bottleneck, cartoon character. And we use that now. And it's just fun doing stuff like that. So that is what we kind of do to empower others to stay motivated, even though we're all working remotely, because isolation can be a bugger.
Well, I'll tell you, I take for granted, I'm sitting here like reliving, thank you for letting me relive some of these thoughts, but I'm sitting here like reliving that we've been doing this hybrid model for a while. And I watch fellow peers with their businesses who have had a corporate environment, and now they're having to figure out some version of fully remote or hybrid. And, as a leader, if you got everyone in the building, you can look engaged and maybe not have to use your words as much. Well, I'll tell you, even I've had to up my level of leading during this time, because people will follow someone. Absent good leadership, they'll follow any leadership. And one of the things I would encourage everyone is that as you're sitting there as the mouthpiece and voice and ambassador of your company, if that's who's listening right now, then I want to encourage you. You have a great responsibility to be a steward of that by a motto for me is only use beneficial or encouraging words that are beneficial to those who are listening. So my job is to encourage. That doesn't mean I can't look to things that need to be critiqued, but I can use beneficial and uplifting words to do that. And quite honestly, I think there's a great responsibility of leaders now to not just check out and help your people, because they're not sure. They wake up every day, they're not sure what to do. And so maybe we could take a few minutes and do that. And so this is a time that there's a call to leadership, because without it, people do perish.
Well, and everybody needs direction.
Everyone.
The leaders need direction.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's so true.
And so, and what's one of the biggest challenges I found as a leader that I thought was very helpful for me, and my wife reminds me to this day, one of the best decisions I ever made was to join a mastermind. Nice. And what was nice is because while I don't necessarily confide in my team, I will confide in the group of my peers. But it doesn't say that, oh, you know what, I made a mistake, or just because we have a nice culture here and there's a specific thing and a theme and a belief system that we all share. I love being challenged. I love somebody asking me a question. That I thrive on that stuff. I think we
have a motto here. We work hard and we take our work serious as long as you don't take yourself serious.
Oh, nice. See, I love that. It just for someone coming up with homie, I love that, man. That's freaking great. That's perfect. It's nice to hear, man. It really is, to see what you've done, what you've created. Now that being said, kind of making a little bit of a shift in the conversation, you do fractional CFO. Can you explain a little bit of what that kind of looks like to somebody that may not be familiar with that?
Yeah. So, there's really 4 kind of key roles. And by the way, I'm not one of these roles. I built this to fix a problem I have in my life, but I went out to solve a problem. I realized it was bigger than just mine. The CFO is somebody who is educated as an accountant, who's really an executive. And so most small businesses, there's 4 roles. There's a master bookkeeper, there's a data analyst, there's a controller, kind of the accountant for the department, and then there's a CFO. Well, as a young business owner, as a small business owner, I would think if I just went and hired a super expensive CFO, I'd get all that covered. Well, that's just not how that works. The CFO is somebody who you rent as an executive. And if you have to rent them full time, it's just more expensive in your budget. So I wanted to build a model where you can rent the CFO for the pieces that you need, and you can get all the other components wrapped up into a package done for you so that you can, for a 1/10 of the cost, even less of what you could ever do to spend on yourself, you have an entire department doing that as an outsourced fractional basis for you. I knew we could do it. Everyone thought we were nuts. The technology wasn't there. But each of those components, businesses need a piece of it. So why not get the best piece you can? And by the way, we only serve one category, the digital community. There are other categories where people need this. We just don't serve that category. Others do. But the small business world, the medium-sized business world, there are parts of your business that you naturally, the global world should allow you through technology to outsource, and we're one of those categories.
I love it. See, that's fantastic. I can't even, it's so empowering. I don't know if that's the right word. It's almost refreshing to hear you talk, because a lot of times when I talk to others, that's exactly what you need to do. You need to carve out your little niche. You need to identify a problem, right? You focus on that problem first, in order to help them out in the end. Right now, if you hire a CFO, you get ready to spend 6 figures or very close to it, right?
Like, you're not hiring a good CFO for under 6 figures. The CFO who's my business partner now, this is on our About Us. So I hired him for $175,000. This was back in 2013. And he was the CFO of my health supplement company. Great guy, love him to pieces, my business partner. But I hired him thinking he was going to do all those other jobs. And he's like, I ain't doing that. We need those things. And so I had to go then hire a $40,000 bookkeeper, and I had to go hire a $60,000 controller. Next thing you know, I got all kinds of people in my department. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is not at all what we need. We need to overhaul the whole system. And quite honestly, it was an old system. It's still in lots of ways an old system if you're plugged into it in an old way. And so that's what I love about the free market society. Yep. It actually improves categories of business. We did this with phone floors. We did this with sales teams. We do this with delivery. We do this with fulfillment. Accounting was just so technical in nature as it relates to banking. It's just dealing with it now.
You, again, nailed it. I couldn't agree more. We do something very similar. We're just personal assistants. And what we found is people need web development and graphic design and all this other stuff. So we have an internal team that personal assistant can delegate tasks to complete that task. So that person doesn't have to go out and hire a designer. They don't have to hire a developer. They don't have to hire a video editor, all of that stuff. It's the same thing I think that you're doing there. And it just makes life easier for someone to get things done. So they instead of spending all their time on the wrong things, they can now focus on doing their best work. That's our. And the good news
is the businesses that are actually solving a problem for customers. Like we're back to where there's some market efficiency. Let's be mature. That if you have a business that really isn't ultimately solving a problem, you're going to cycle out. You're not offering value to a community. So you're there to make a few bucks and you're probably going to go away. But businesses that actually are solving a problem, are offering value to the customer, they can still get taken out off of bad inefficiencies of the way their company's operated. So now with this ability to be able to virtualize and fractionalize and outsource components of your business, you have a better chance of surviving process and people disaster things that happen in your company. I'm so passionate about this subject, Jamie. I wrote books. You can see them over my shoulder. And anyone who's listening and anyone who wants, if they just go to fullyaccountable.com/podcast-gift, we'll give it to them. We would set up a branded page for Bottleneck in your business, but they're yours. I want you to win at this model of the brain center and what to outsource. You don't have to work with us. We're one of the choices, but you can run a modern business by taking chunks of your company in a fractionalized outsourced model and be massively more efficient than you ever could be otherwise.
Well, and I'm speaking, I have firsthand experience with doing what you're offering. I didn't know you were around, but a good friend of mine was a former CFO for a very large corporate company. Yeah. I met him in the Mastermind, and he offered to be our virtual kind of fractional CFO. Yeah. And I cannot tell you what a blessing that is.
It's amazing.
Because there's no way I could have afforded to hire him. I just couldn't. There's no way I could have done it.
But, yeah, I mean, think about this. I'll always tease. There's other people who compete with us. That's great. It's when you're playing from the front, you got to find other things to do. We're big. I get it. And we're like a fintech company with a bunch of experts running around. But when you think about it, our core packages are $2,000, $4,000, $6,000. Well, let's just pick on the middle one. You've got 3 of the 4 people on your team, and you're basically paying a hair above the lowest paid one. And you got the whole thing done for you. That's in what we call in the marketing world an irresistible offer. What business of the category we live in, it would almost be criminal as the executive to not be looking at these solutions in your business. Now, I get it. We used to run businesses under some old habits. And as you grow up in size, you got to mature categories in your business. Well, both of those require you and I as leaders to be able to challenge some of our old thoughts. Well, outsourcing and fractionalization are one of those things that have to challenge old thought.
Yes. And speaking of that, challenging and sending those out, businesses, you mentioned earlier, businesses' operations are somewhat changing. How effective you are in your operations, how effective you are in your systems, your processes, and your workflows is even more important now. Work from home policies are taking shape in just about every company. If you don't have that, you need to be building that right now. But this is a great example on how you can leverage the systems and processes within your own business. And there's nothing more powerful than testing the stability or the strength of your organization, running a system remotely and seeing where those friction points occur so that you can make those adjustments.
Yeah, I just was laughing here thinking about before all this. You know how I sit around with business colleagues at masterminds and things that I attend, and people would say, "Ooh, work from home. Aren't they less productive?" And you're not even sure if they're working. Mm-hmm. So if there isn't one in our company, I kind of listen to that noise. So I built a closed system where people have to log into, and I was making sure. Well, I just sit here laughing, thinking everyone else is trying to figure that out right now. This argument of efficiency from home is gone because everyone's home.
Everyone's home, and you see personal productivity is going through the roof.
There are categories where companies have to figure some stuff out, but the things that we're going to need to figure out as a society is how to separate work at home. People don't know how to do that, right? They needed to go to the office and they shut it off when they went home. Well, we're going to, as a society and leadership, we're going to have to help people figure out how to do that well from home. We've been doing it as a company, and we have culture things built around that. But I think the vast majority of companies are going to have to, there's going to have to be things figured out there, because the average working good person on your team, they just want to do the best they can for you. So they don't know how to shut that stuff off. And so there's probably a massive blend, and they probably are feeling the burn on that at home.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that as well. I mean, we've all been on the Zoom call where the cats jumped into the screen, or the kids come running by and, mom or dad are giving them the hugs and the kisses and things like that, which I think is fantastic, by the way. Yeah. But these are all little bitty distractions, as welcome as they may be, that you wouldn't get being in a different environment, such as an office or, offsite, even in a coffee shop. You're away from the perhaps the immediate distractions that you have at home.
let's be honest. Like, there are people who are great professionals, these dedicated parents and awesome community members, that maybe their primary calling isn't the work they do. Maybe they want to go work from 9 to 5 and kill it for you or I, so they can go do what they're really desiring or passionate about. They make a living feeding people, and then they go out and do something else. Like, I have people on my team who are awesome. I love them, but they are actually more passionate about what they do with their off hours than their on hours. And so I think as a society, we're going to have to help people figure some of these things out. It's easy in my insulated environment because we've been doing it for so long. Yeah. So people who join our team are like, well, what about this? Like, we have a process for that. What about this? We have a thing for that. But that's not true of all of our colleagues and friends around us.
No. What we found is that was probably one of the number one biggest hurdles, because when you hire somebody, there's all these things that you have to go through that people don't really take into consideration. And I did some research on Glassdoor. I saw it's $4,129 in the US to hire somebody. It's up to 9 months salary to fire somebody. That holds true even in an instant like you. If you're going to be hiring your services or obtaining your services, there's some things you need to do prior to that happening as the client of Vinnie Fisher's company, right? There's some things you have to prepare for. And a lot of people don't have that nailed down quite so tightly right now, especially with all the adjustments going on. So we try to really help them out with that in the beginning, because that's a tough thing, man, getting ready to do something like that. Like, what all needs to happen? How is this going to work?
We built an entire department called our onboarding department to deal with that issue. We say, bring us your old wineskin that's kind of weaved into the new one, and we will help you fix it, because we've been doing this for so long. You're likely to break it some more. But you're right. Vast majority of companies are not equipped to kind of change the way they do things. And hey, you know what? I think that's going to be part of marketplace. I think like businesses like yours, which are awesome, by the way. I've been in love with your model for so long. People are like, Vinnie, why didn't you open one of those? Because Jamie's got one. Let him worry about that. But I think another age of consultancies coming in, where those consultants are going to lead themselves to companies like ours.
Yep, I agree.
I
totally agree, and that's it. That's you know what? Quite frankly, you've been such a huge advocate of this platform. I would imagine, and I'm going out on a limb here, you've developed a ton of great relationships.
Yeah,
and you're the first thing that pops into their mind when this is an issue with their friends.
Yeah, we are growing in every category, and we have a great inbound marketing and outbound sales process, but still number 2 or 3 on our list at all times, because of our character and reputation in the market, are referrals. And so as a lead gen person, someone who likes paid media, I used to hear that as a negative, but now I hear it as a compliment to who we are in the marketplace.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. I don't remember who told me this, and I was like, oh, wow. Made me think, because they said when you start off, you want to get a lot of referrals, but if you're doing really well, you're getting less referrals and more, business because of the paid advertising or whatever. But that's never truly been the case for us. We still get a little more referrals than we do from any of our paid campaigns or anything like that. If it changes in the future, I have no idea.
I think it's true. If you look at most research, most firms in a certain size, you're going to run neck and neck. And I bet my sales teams would say we've had months where referrals are stronger, but on average, that's true. Or earlier when we were younger, even half the size we were, but with a strong reputation, I bet it was like a neck and neck race. Our size in the channel outlay now, it's not going to be. And that's true as the bigger you get. But the reality is, like, if you're not getting referrals as a bigger company, that speaks more to what you offer and how you're solving a problem than it does to anything else. Because if your dearest clients aren't sending you people to work with them, I think you might want to ask different questions.
Yeah. Figure out what's going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. One thing I'll say before we wrap, I'll let you finish up here, but I sent out I did some surveys too and got some feedback, and it was like, a humbling experience to look at some of the things that, quite frankly, we effed up on, to put it shortly. But what we did is I opened up the vulnerability box and I sent out a newsletter, and I told all of the people on our list, this is the survey, some survey results that we got back. These were some of the things I learned we were totally lacking on. And I think my subject line was, I'm so embarrassed. And then I went through it and I said, but this is what we're going to do about it. And so we want to say thank you to everybody that participated in helping us grow. And that was a huge game changer for us as far as listening to what others are saying and things like that. And the reason that I think that was kind of important to bring into this conversation is I think that can go across the board into any business, no matter what it is that you're doing.
Get close to your customer. You're going to learn a lot about your business. I'm honest and will admit that I'm such a growth freak that when you look back through my resume, my curriculum vitae, you'll see companies that I ran where I ran from our customer. I didn't run to them. And I was just building something. I wanted the one-time sale. I was so consumed with the next sale. I wasn't focused on nurturing the customer. And I'll tell you, I had that all wrong. And when you look at the successes in my life, it's when I would have nurtured the client and the customer, not when I would have run from them.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, we've gone over a little bit on our time, and I want to respect your time. So I'm wondering if there's anything that you would like to say before we wrap up, and how do we get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'll tell you, what's been on my heart lately is stay the course. The word is like steadfast. And like, I'm just encouraging everyone. That's where I'm at. It's like, stay the course. Like, stuff's hard. And like, as a leader, as a worker, our boredom and anxiety are real emotions that aren't going away. It's how we respond to them. So I just think stay the course, like work through, because the benefit to working through is this trait that you get called perseverance. And so that's where I'm at in my life, and the people that are around me, I keep saying that over and over. And if you want to know more about me, you can just find me at Vinnie Fisher anything. And so you can find us at fullyaccountable.com. And Jamie, thanks for having me today, bud.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Vinnie. It's been a pleasure getting to chat with you. The time flew by. Yeah. I know I could probably ask you a ton more questions, and I just want to say thanks again for providing the service that you do. I think it's a needed service. I think more people need to be introduced to it. And I'm really thankful that you're doing what you do, because you're helping a lot of people out that couldn't do it otherwise.
Yeah, and I want to show your show and all the things. Jordan, my media director, loves you guys, and thank you for what you're doing. Like, getting out to help people. I know that it helps our businesses, but it matters. Like, getting out stuff like this. That's why we do it. Yep. Like, even if part of our mission was so that you went and did this yourself, it's a win. So thank you for allowing us to do more of that.
Oh, Vinnie, thank you so much. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, that's it. But just I just see you have a Boston something on, and so I could tease you.
Cheers.
Leave that out. And, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Hold on one quick second, if you can. Just one quick. I'll wrap up really fast. I've been talking with the one and only Vinnie Fisher. What an amazing fella. Working from home. We talked about remote and hybrid. He's the CEO of Fully Accountable. Can't recommend enough checking that out, learning more about it. He does CFO and fractional, so virtual CFO and fractional services. So you're looking to grow your company. If you're like anything like me, I hate 1 + 1 = 3 for me every time. I hate math. I can't stand it. We went out, got a CFO that's amazing at that stuff. They absolutely love it. Call Vinnie today. He can take care of you and help you grow your business. That's one way he can help you stop the bottleneck in your business. So again, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in. We're launching Live with Bottleneck on BTV. It's coming out. So you can go learn more by going to bottleneck.online/TV. And this conversation, along with many other conversations that we have to help you stop the bottleneck in your business, will be there for you to watch on demand. And if you subscribe and hit the little bell icon, every time I come out with a new one, you'll be notified right away in case you weren't able to see it live. That being said, if you want to get in touch with Vinnie, please let me know. And if you put a chat, anything in the comments there, I'll make sure to forward it off to him. Any questions that you have, again, you can go to VinnieFisher.com or Vinnie Fisher anywhere, as he says. So thank you so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful day. Remember, create your own ripple. We'll see you next time.
you.